And today we'll be talking a little bit about some new changes that we've added in our kind of extensibility and app platform tools at DHIS2. First, I'll talk a little bit about some changes that we've made to the Vite configuration that we have in the app platform that makes it extensible, which would really open up a lot of options to kind of work and develop DHIS2 apps the way that you're used to developing apps and open up a lot of options for yeah, other ways of integrating tools that you like to use. And then after that, Mozafar will talk a bit about some changes that we've made to kind of modernize the CLI tools that we use in the kind of DHIS2 development ecosystem, particularly to kind of modernize the ability to use new package managers to to run the apps and the tools instead of Yarn Classic, which is getting a little bit out of date and is not so optimal. And using things like PNPM now can save a lot of space when you're installing the tools themselves and be a lot faster when you're managing projects. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Feel free to add any questions in the chat as we're going, and we'll answer them as we go along. I'll start with presenting a little bit. Um, Wait just a moment. Yeah, great. Share my screen. Okay. So hopefully you can see the DHIS2 developer portal now. We have some documentation in the reference docs pages and under the application platform section to configuration and then extending the app platform's Vite config. So the app platform is this kind of set of tools that you can do to bootstrap a new DHIS2 app and run it and deploy it to DHIS2 instances and brings a lot of tools to make it easy to make DHIS2 apps. And it uses Vite under the hood to build the apps and run the development servers for it and handle things like compilation, TypeScript, and other important parts of the app. Previously, the configuration that we used in Vite was kind of hidden behind the app platform libraries itself. But now we've added a way that you can add extensions to the Vite config in your own app and kind of customize how it's built and served for you, for your app. So let's see. There's a couple ways that you can do that using the d2config.js file. You can either, one, provide an object of just a couple of config options that looks like this. In your D2 config, you specify the kind of basic options for your app, but then you can add an option, vite config extensions. And for example, if you have this library that has a couple quirks, then you need to add it to the optimized deps inclusion for Vite, which usually if you're having some problem with your app and you're Googling what you need to do and uh, you see you see some instructions like, oh, you can add to your Vite config. This is how you fix it. Then here's an option you can do there. You can just add it right in the d2config.js file. If you have more options that you want to do, you can add a Vite config extensions file. And that gives you a little more power and control over the kind of config options that you're going to do. So, um, one thing that I'll maybe mention is that there's some links in here that are useful. If you are wondering what the config is that the app platform already uses, you can look at the link here. This is the file that we use when we're running the app. You can kind of inspect this to see the final config that we use um, when we run Vite. See the root, the base, environment variables, some server options, some build options, a couple plugins, and a couple other things. When you add Vite config extensions, then those will get merged onto the base config. And it uses a pretty smart way of kind of taking what's already there. And even if you have deep nested objects in the configuration, it applies them kind of smartly. So There, when you're adding to those extensions, there's a couple links to helpful documentation for the Vite things. There's if you want to load environment variables around your app, there are some helpers that can do that. There are a lot of options available in Vite. You can certainly browse the documentation and find it, but oftentimes the things that you need to change will kind of come up naturally as you're working on things and as you're problem solving, you'll be like, oh, I need to add this to the Vite config. So what that looks like is you can make a separate file in your application. You should probably name it something .mjs or .mts because Vite likes being imported from module files and not common JS files. And then you can use some helpers from Vite like define config, or you can import types from Vite to help kind of get a sense of the config that you're building on. And then if you're using this helper here, you get a couple options available, like what mode Vite's being run in. This is, for example, development or production, and I believe a couple other things. Define config, config in the form of callback. Yeah, so you can read some of the documentation about how to use that here. Then if you use a file, you specify your options. From this Vite config extensions file, you follow all the rules that you would for a normal Vite config file, as described in the documentation. For example, export it as a default export. And then step two is you point to that file in Vite config. And then when you run it, it should be good to go. And so in these examples here, you can see some of the ways that that might be useful for you. Um, one of the most popular things that I think I've seen a lot of apps use this for already is to set up import aliases. So if you have a project with a lot of kind of neat, deep nested directories, and you want to import something from another deep nested directory, you have to go dot dot slash dot dot slash dot dot slash dot dot slash directory, etc. And that can get hard to kind of manage. And if you move files around, then it can get pretty complicated. But instead, you can set up an import alias to an absolute path so that you can always import straight from, for example, the source directory and the path following that instead of backtracking all the way down the file tree and back. So that's one of the most common use cases for this. You can see that in action in, let's see, in the app platform example app, I believe, since this is set up here, and I go to this file here, if I want to import from the alerter instead of this relative path, let's see. I think this might just be an ESLint problem. Live coding can be exciting, but the app should run and the import should be working so that when we go to plus 3000, the alerter is indeed imported. That's this component here, and the app is running. I added this other option in the example config here, just to kind of show off a couple things. You can say that you can detect the mode that the app's being run in, and this clear screen option is just a small thing that's kind of visible to show if the config is working. So for example, if I go do console.log hi here, we can see in the server we just printed this new line, or in the console here, terminal. I mean, we just printed this new line here instead of clearing the whole screen. And say if we comment out that option and we start over our server and we make a change here, the default behavior of Vite is to clear the screen after a hot module reload. And so this option is kind of just useful. I just included this as something visible to show that your config is getting loaded or not. And so that's why that's there, although a lot of people have been adopting this option, which I find amusing. So those are the basics of it. I think it's pretty simple to implement and adds a lot of power. And I can show you some of the use cases that people have been using it for um, around DHIS2 at least. So we have, let's see. Oh, this is the app platform. In the Capture app, there's a big project going on to kind of modernize the tools used under the hood. Recently, they did a lot of work to migrate over 1,000 files from Flow to TypeScript. And now that they're using TypeScript, they can use the newer version of our app platform tools, and they've added a couple options for their libraries. They have a couple um, import aliases that they want to use, since they have several kind of deep component um, uh, directories that they import from. They have a couple ones that they can use aliases from. And then also this define option helps support a couple old libraries that used a global variable. Global is technically a node thing and not a browser environment thing, so Vite kind of stopped supporting that natively. But you can set this option here to support old libraries. For example, Material UI, I think is one of them. And maybe Style JSX. I forget. But there's a couple old libraries that use a variable called global that's no longer supported in modern apps. So that's one use of taking advantage of the extensible Vite config. Maybe you guys have seen the WHO growth charts plugin. This is a plugin in the Capture app where when you're looking at an enrollment overview, it makes a chart showing a person, a young person's kind of height and weight graphed over time to see if they're growing at a healthy rate. And so what they've done is added an import alias for themselves, plus also a plugin to add Tailwind CSS. And so Tailwind is a handy you let's see. Yeah, it's a handy kind of styles library framework that makes it easy to do a lot of spacing and kind of add styling quickly and easily. And the best way of adding it when you're using Vite is to use this. Here's the instructions of how to use it as a plugin in Vite. So now, if you're familiar with Tailwind and you use that to develop a lot of your apps, you can also use that in your DHIS2 apps to add styles. Let's see, another example is in the event visualizer app, the new analytics app that's being developed. They prefer to have, let's see, in their options, they have a lot of import aliases. They like to use an import alias for lots of different kind of directories, types, API, constants, hooks, modules, store, test utils, etc. One of our colleagues has a kind of scaffold that uses the shadcn UI library, which seems like a very helpful um, library with a bunch of different components that can get you started. Breadcrumb, let's see, that's not a particularly visually interesting one. Card, etc. Alert. So these are a lot of nice looking UI options, but it uses Tailwind under the hood. And so to install and use shadcn, you want to do the same thing where you add let's see. Yeah, you want to add the same Tailwind CSS plugin here. And so this gives you access to this uh, really elaborate component library. And remember, if you're using this, though, to use the DHIS2 design system. make it look like a DHIS2 app as much as you can. And you can probably add some custom styling to these components to do that. So those are, I think, are actually one more thing. In in one project that's used by the climate team, they're using a new way of kind of handling this mono repo. I think it's turbo repo that they're using. And by default, Vite has a way of detecting that it's in a mono repo and detecting that it should be able to handle files kind of above the current working directory in the repository if it sees that it's part of a larger repository in the mono repo. But that didn't work for Turbo Repo out of the box, and so he was able to, or one of the developers was able to add this custom Vite config to allow files um, kind of above each app to be served from Vite, which allowed this kind of live development between multiple packages in the mono repo and to reflect changes up there. And so this let them use this nice turbo repo tool for their thing without kind of changing the app platform code itself. So with all of these things, I think it's pretty cool, and I know that a lot of different people have a lot of different ways of working with their apps and a lot of preferences for the libraries and the tools that they use. And I hope this extensible config makes it enables you to use the kind of ways that you like to work. And if you want to check out the documentation again, check out the developer portal under the app platform configuration section, and hopefully this should provide some good links to the Vite config options and useful things for how to set this up. Do you guys have any questions about that? Feel free to unmute. Let's see. I heard someone speak, but I didn't hear in the chat. I see the alias is common to most projects. Are there plans to have it by default in the app platform new app? Well, maybe. I don't, yeah, I don't see a good reason why not. Maybe we should do that. Thanks for the suggestion, Gift. That might make us feel smart and modern to come with import aliases by default. See, I'm looking for my pen, but yeah, okay. I'll make a note. And cool, feel free to ask any more questions in the chat. But in the meantime, I'll hand it over to Mozafar to talk about the CLI improvements that we've been working on. So over to you, Mozafar.
Yeah, thank you. Let me share my screen. My video. So hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Muzaffar. I'm one of the developers in the extensibility team. And today we want to present some improvement that we've done for the CLI. Um, just for people new to this ecosystem, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. The CLI uh, provides these utilities, D2 utilities that you can use to do a lot of things. D2 app to create bootstrap new apps, D2 cluster to start Dockerized DHIS2 instances for development, other things as well. So in your CLI, you can do something like D2 or D2 app scripts in it, and then the app name, and that will create for you a new app. So we've been looking at some improvements for that. We faced some problems. The problems we I think the extensibility team this became much more visible for us when we started going to trainings and workshops and seeing third-party developers using our toolset or rather not using it and asking why they are not using it. So some of the problems that the CLI installation just takes forever to install. Uh, Installing on Windows is problematic and it's hit and miss. Sometimes it just hangs, it doesn't work. There were issues with modern setups, like with monorepos. A few people said that they had to do a lot of workarounds just to get it working with the bootstrapping new apps. Like I showed you, there are few things that you do with the CLI, but a lot of the people that use it come to it, they're wanting to just start a new app, and that's a bit problematic and also doesn't work sometimes. We got reports about the huge number of warnings that happen on the CLI if you bootstrap new app. I think we counted them. There are around 67 warning there. And sometimes also that it's just an intuitive interface and the CLI like D2 app scripts in it. It's a bit of a mouthful, like it's a lot. Is it script? Is it apps? Is it init, initialize? It can be confusing sometimes. So these problems we started addressing them, and you can already, and we encourage you to do this. You can install the new version of the CLI already. It's in alpha. We've been testing it and using it, and you can also install it from npm install global DHIS2 CLI at alpha, and soon it will be merged to the main branch, and you don't need to add the at alpha for any of the commands. Um, but the root cause of these issues is these three things, I would say. First of all, it's bloated. It's there is a PR that I will share that you can follow that has all of this work. And it used to be when we started, it's 585 megabyte to install it. And that's huge. You can probably power through it if you have a very good internet connection, but it's massive. So a lot of the issues that we see and people see is just simply because you have to download uh, more than 500 megabyte. That's a lot. So one of the main things we try to do is to reduce this bloat, and we went down to 145 megabyte, but we intend to go down even further. And then outdated patterns. It's just that this CLI project started 7 years ago, more than 7 years ago, and a lot of things were done in the ways that were common at that point, but this is not the way that our things are done nowadays. So it's a bit that also fits into it not being very intuitive to use, because people now, if you're initializing, I don't like a Next.js app, or Vite or all of these CLIs, you're used to certain ways of doing these things, and it's not the case with our CLI. And the third one is also a very important one, and it's tied with all of these other issues, is that we're using Yarn 1. Yarn 1, Yarn now as a package manager, I think it's on Yarn 4, but also people started using other package managers. NPM itself became much better than it used to be 7 years ago. So, but if you are using our toolset, you were kind of forced to use Yarn 1 as always. And that always came as a caveat when we were showing our CLI, that to make sure that you have yarn one installed and how to do that, how to make sure it's not you don't have a newer version. But it also causes the issues with monorepos. It causes issues with the bloat as well and the size. And yeah, it's outdated nowadays. So we tackled the problems. We started by cleaning up the dependencies. If you say like there are in the PR, there are links to all the PRs. When we started with minimizing the warnings from 60 something to 16, and that's just by doing a cleanup, updating the dependencies, removing ones that were there but they were not used. Because this is unlike a web app where you have a build step that can get rid of unused stuff. This was everything that was declared in the dependencies was installed on people's machine. So we cleaned up some of these. We updated some of the dependencies to more modern versions because the older versions were giving warnings. But that only got us to a certain level, like to get past it. We had to do something, yeah, more than that. And that is using PMPM. PMPM is, if you don't know, it's a modern package manager. It seems to be taking over as the main package manager nowadays. And one of its motivations is to save disk spaces. So it uses a clever way of installing dependencies and managing different versions and so on. So it saves a lot of space compared to using npm or yarn. It's quite fast, especially reinstall. Like the first time you install dependencies, maybe you don't notice the difference from npm, but if you're using the same dependencies, which is the case for most of us, we use the same dependencies over and over again, you will notice it's much faster to install and run the apps when using PNPM. And yeah, there are other benefits to it, but the main thing in our use case here was like saving disk space, and that just by using PNPM internally, we went from the 500 megabyte to a bit over 100. Um, and that was already a huge win. And for you as a consumer, you don't need to care. This is just internal to the project. But the next step from that was like if we are using PMPM internally, but tying people to Yarn 1 doesn't really work. We wanted also to give people the freedom to move from Yarn 1. So we did a lot of work of decoupling Yarn 1 from how things are run and working. And now, yeah, running applications in the alpha branch and soon in the main branch, you don't need to run it with Yarn 1 anymore. The last one is just to have new modern ways for bootstrapping apps. Like I said, a lot of people come to the CLI with the intention of just starting a new app. Um, and that was, yeah, a bit tough before. You have to install D2, which has its own problem, and then you have to say a D2 app in it. For example, this whole thing, and yeah, that would Bootstrap create a new app for you. You can already see like all of this warning that because of Yarn 1, eventually you will get an app working. But we moved to a new way of doing things, which is similar to other meta frameworks. So now if you want to bootstrap a new app, you just can use npx or npm create or npm init. So if you say npm create a new app, this it has like this dash I is an interactive flag, and this gives you, you can also just pass it, uh, you can pass it the arguments, but uh, if you say npm create at DHIS, we will drop the alpha at some point. That will start the process of bootstrapping a new app. And you can, this is, let's say, this is our modern project. That's its name. You have the option of using PNPM or NPM or defaulting, just staying with the old Yarn 1 legacy. But we yeah, encourage people to use PNPM. And if you don't pass interactive, PNPM would be the default. We already added the TypeScript template a while ago. So we can choose it here just so that you see that. And that would start the process of starting a new app. You don't need to install the D2 CLI, all of it. You just run one single command, and that should have here like our project here working. So if I say, let's open this here, and you see there is an app here, and I can do npm start, and this is, yeah, this is running. Let me point it to, you can point it to your own uh, instance or these debug instances that we have as well. Um, and this is, yeah, this is running. The app is starting. It's a DHIS2 app. It's calling the typical template that we had, calling API. And this one is using the TypeScript template that we have. But the main thing is that, yeah, to get to this point, now you just need to run one command. You don't need to install tools. You don't need to, yeah, do anything extra. Um, so as frictionless as it can be. Um, and yeah, once this is, yeah, you can run it also with npx. You can run it with pnpm if you have that globally installed, or yarn create as well. It's all the same. So yeah, this is hopefully for your new apps. Will give you any new apps that you start from going forward. You don't need to be stuck with Yarn 1, and you can use PNPM or NPM if you prefer. Um, for existing apps, we also, at least internally, we intend to upgrade these apps to our apps to use PNPM and use the new CLI. And this is exposed us to like some of the issues that we need to solve. So this is just a quick demo to give you an idea of what needs to be done. There's a link to the PR here, that we are upgrading the aggregate, the data entry app to use PNPM, and you can see what's needed. Some of it is related to the GitHub actions. So GitHub actions need to be updated to use PNPM, but the upgrade is minimum. Like I see there is a GitHub action called action PNPM action setup. And then everywhere you're using Yarn, you need to replace that with PNPM. And that's basically what's needed from the GitHub action point of view. The other thing that's not necessarily needed, but in our context is good, is to use Core Pack is available with Node.js from version 14, and that gives you ability to just change between package managers, Yarn, npm, and PNPM without issues. So that's handy when in a context like ours, when we will have projects that are on Yarn and other that are on PNPM. So this is just one command that you run, Corpac use, and that adds this bit to package JSON, and that tells you and other people using the project that to use PNPM this version for this project. And the main changes that's needed is in this PNPM workspace YAML. So there are some uh, packages that would not work out of the box with PNPM, and that's mainly because of this issue of phantom dependencies. I added a link if you want to read more about what phantom dependencies are, but they are mainly the dependencies that you are working implicitly. So, for example, in our case before, in most of the apps that you would have built with using the CLI, React and React DOM were not explicitly in the package JSON, but they work because they are hoisted by the Yarn one. So they are made look as if they are available, but they are not necessarily available, and that leads to a lot of issues. So PNPM doesn't allow that by default, and the solution most of the time is just to be explicit to install the library in your package JSON, and that's what you should do. But if you want a workaround, you can use this publicly hoist pattern. So this is basically telling it that, okay, for these libraries, just use the yarn one, the old behavior, hoist them to the root folder, and they continue to work as if nothing happened. So this is a workaround for libraries that could be problematic to use because they are following these patterns properly. And if that's the case, you can do that, or you can even use this shamefully hoist. It's a setting that you can add, and it's called for a reason called shamefully hoist. You can say shamefully hoist true, and that makes PNPM behave as if it is yarn one or old npm, that it's hoisting everything to the root and everything will continue to work as it used to be. So yeah, for existing projects, this can be a place you can check to see what's needed in general terms to update your projects. It's mostly just the PNPM workspace and updating GitHub Actions if you have any there. Um, the next steps, yeah, is to release this to main branch so that you don't have to add the alpha tag. We please, yeah, if you can install it from the CLI at alpha now, even that would be great. It works like the old one, just adding these new features. It would be good to have feedback. Tell us if something is not working. Next steps also now that we have this is just to have a bit of sophisticated templates. This is related to what Gift said, actually, in a way that I agree we should add by default an alias. And not just that, there are the default template that comes there is it's too simplistic. Hopefully now that we have this new mechanism, we can add more pages to it, more libraries that you typically use, but we are open to ideas similar to the alias, just to tell us if there are things that you would like to have in the default template. But we're thinking also that maybe we can allow people to provide their own templates if through our tool as well. That would be similar to what Next and other libraries do. We want to add more documentation for this and a cheat sheet to there are a lot of commands in the D2 CLI that people probably even don't know about. It'd be nice to update the documentation for that and make it more discoverable. Avoid hoisted dependencies. Like I show you, we had to hoist some of the dependencies, and few of them are from our internal libraries. So we would want to update our internal libraries so that we don't need to have any workarounds for them to work in modern package managers. Um, with the bloat, a lot of the bloat, we got it down from 500 megabyte to 100. But to go a bit further, there are other things that need to be changed, like fundamentally the approach for them. One of them is CLI style and how it uses uh, yeah, it embeds ESLint and all of that. And again, this is just what needed to be done 7 years ago to have shareable configs, but all of these tools, Prettier Share and ESLint and LSLint, they have now new ways of sharing configs that we intend to upgrade to, and that would definitely bring the CLI to much less than 150 megabyte. It will also make it easier for other people to just use our configs, but extend them in a more an easier way. There are things that are related to just us internally, how we work on the CLI. Want to bring it's distributed and along a lot of repos. We want to bring it in a mono repo. Part of reducing the bloat is just to also do some functionality trimming, just that there's some functionality we don't think it's used, but it's there. It'd be good to just delete it. And also to add telemetry just to help with these decisions, just to know what commands are actually people are using them and what commands are not being used. And if there is anything else, whether it's the CLI in general or ideas about the default templates, what it should include, you can contact us. This is like our team extensibility at dhis.org or on Slack. My email is muzaffar@dhis2.org. It'd be great to hear from you. Finally, questions, again, the email, and this is the CLI, the main PR there, which you can follow to know that can subscribe to it and just not get notified when it's merged. And that's it, from my side. I'll send you the link to this PR if you want to subscribe to it. Any questions? If any questions come up, if you have any feedback, you know how to reach us, hopefully.
Gossam, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if it was addressed. The question from Gift, was it? I think it has been addressed, right?
Yeah.
And then okay, and then there was a question that I received in a COP message. I invite the participant to actually ask, but I'm gonna ask you myself. For a new person who wants to start implementing DHIS to web app, what should I do first? I shared the link to the developers.dhis2.org website, but maybe they could also post about their use cases in the COP. But I'll leave the table for you now. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, now this is the command that they need to run to have a template up and running and talking to the HIS. So the aim is that should be as easy as just running one command. So this is the starting point. We'll update the documentation to include it. But if you send me a link to the COP discussion, maybe there is more that they need other than starting an app, and we can look at that, whether to incorporate it in the CLI or just show them where in the documentation they can point to. But this is the new starting point, just this one command, and they can get started.
Thank you, Muzaffar. Yes, it was a direct message, so I actually would encourage them to make it a public post so all developers can get engaged, they can share their experiences and benefit from the conversation. And maybe in general, we could have a topic post for like new people to know what's going on, where to start. Also, I posted in the Zoom chat a reminder. There's an invitation link to click and redeem your badge. Please remember to click that. And thank you.
Okay, great. Sounds like that's all for questions. Thanks, Mozafar. Thanks, Qasim. Great presentations. And that's all for this month's developer meetup. Thank you all for attending and hope you all got some useful information. And we'll be in touch for the developer meetup next month. Happy coding and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.